In 1935, the world was not yet at war, but it was already moving toward it, step by step. Europe was tired, scarred, broken from the memory of trenches and gas and millions dead. Leaders promised peace. Citizens prayed it would last. But peace in Europe during the mid-1930s was not built on strength. It was built on fear. And in Berlin, one man understood that better than anyone. By 1935, Adolf Hitler was no longer testing the limits of the Treaty of Versailles in secret. He was tearing it apart openly. Germany had been forbidden from building a large army. It was forbidden from having an air force. Its navy was restricted. Its pride was crushed. But in March 1935, Hitler made his move. He reintroduced conscription. Germany would rebuild its army. Not quietly, not carefully, but boldly. The world watched. France was alarmed. Britain was concerned. But neither was ready for another war. The memory of 1914 was still fresh in the minds of politicians and mothers alike. No one wanted to send another generation into slaughter, and so they hesitated. That hesitation changed history. Meanwhile, inside Germany, something darker was taking shape. In September 1935, during the massive Nuremberg rally, the regime introduced new laws that would define who belonged and who did not. These became known as the Nuremberg Laws. They stripped Jewish citizens of their rights. They banned marriages between Jews and so-called Aryans. They reduced people who had lived in Germany for generations to outsiders overnight. The world heard about it, but again, there was no real action. Hitler learned something crucial in 1935. He could push, and no one would push back. But Germany was not the only country challenging the fragile world order. Far to the south, another dictator had dreams of empire. In October 1935, Benito Mussolini invaded Ethiopia. Ethiopia was one of the few independent nations left in Africa. Its emperor, Haile Selassie, appealed desperately to the League of Nations. He asked the world for help. The League condemned Italy. They imposed sanctions. But they were weak sanctions. Oil was not included. Britain and France did not want to push Mussolini into Hitler's arms. So Italy continued its invasion. By 1936, Ethiopia had fallen. The League of Nations had failed. And dictators everywhere were paying attention. Then came 1936, the year the balance truly shifted. In March, Hitler made his most dangerous gamble yet. German troops marched into the Rhineland. This region, bordering France, had been demilitarized after World War I. It was meant to act as a buffer, a safety zone. Hitler knew his army was still weak. He even told his generals, "If France moves against us, we must retreat." But France did nothing. Britain advised calm. No shots were fired, and Hitler won. Later, he would admit that if the French had marched in, Germany would have had to withdraw. His regime might even have collapsed, but they didn't. And with that, the balance of power in Europe changed. Then, in July 1936, another fire ignited, this time in Spain. The Spanish Civil War began. General Francisco Franco launched a rebellion against the Spanish Republic. But Spain quickly became more than a civil war. It became a testing ground. Hitler and Mussolini sent troops, aircraft, and weapons to support Franco. The Soviet Union supported the Republican side. Volunteers from across Europe joined the fight. It was a preview of what modern war would look like. Bombings of cities, ideological conflict, total destruction. Europe was sliding toward catastrophe. And yet many still believed peace could be preserved. By the end of 1936, alliances were forming. Germany and Italy grew closer. Japan, already expanding aggressively in Asia, began aligning with them. The Axis was taking shape. Democracies hesitated, dictators advanced, and the world drifted toward war. Not in one sudden explosion, but through a series of small, unpunished acts. 1935 and 1936 were not years of global war. But they were the years when war became inevitable. Because when aggression goes unanswered, it grows, and by the time the world finally reacted, it was too late.